We are already in March 2025, and I don't know about you, but so far it feels a little bit like a continuation of how 2024 ended, even though we are only 2 months into the new year. And over the last few weeks, hence my radio silence, I've had so many conversations with business owners and team leaders and consultants and executives and other recruiters, and everyone feels a little bit the same. They are frustrated, they feel uncertain, and they also rethink their next career move because we are seeing redundancies left, right, and center. For one single job ad, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of applicants. Radio silence from recruiters who simply don't call back or give any feedback. And of course, also the fear of, does AI make my skill set irrelevant, and or are my offers, are my messages, are my products and services still relevant for what's ahead? Now, if that sounds a little bit too familiar, then don't worry, you are not alone. The way we think about executive leadership, career development, and also career progression is being rewritten in real time, literally right now. We're seeing mass layoffs left, right, and center. Economic uncertainty is still around. And of course, AI is reshaping every industry and profession as we speak. And at the same time, companies are also cutting costs because there is a lot more competition. Now, that means the traditional full-time executive roles aren't what they used to be. And we all probably at some stage had the dream of landing this high-profile senior role that we've got the corner office in the city somewhere. Well, yes, not necessarily a thing as such anymore. And clearly, COVID has also reshaped already what our expectations of being successful in our career actually means to us. Now, what we also see is that companies are more and more hesitant to commit to those big salaries and all the overheads that come with having a full-time employee. And the government, to be honest, especially in Australia, doesn't make it much easier to employ people with getting more and more rights and eligibilities for certain benefits to employees. And obviously, I'm all for that. But at the same time, because I also run a business, I do feel for business owners because the struggle is real with facing global competition. Plus, we've got now also the talent challenges. We've got increased tax, we've got high interest rates, and so forth. So what's the alternative? Short answer, it's what we call a portfolio leadership or fractional executive roles. Now, I know this concept is still a little bit new to Australia, but if you've been in my world, I've been talking about the concept of portfolio careers for 10 plus years, simply because I've never actually had a different reality. So it came a little bit by accident, but since I was 14, I've always had at least 2 jobs. So obviously, when I was 14, I was still full-time in school, and in Australia, back then it was 6 days school. So not nowadays where you only have 5 days and it's more or less half days, but it's 6 days with the 6th day, which is the Saturday, being a half day. And then I worked on weekends and at nights, and obviously during my school holiday for my dad's business. Like in this case, it wasn't an option, it was just what I had to do. And then when I was 16, I started a second job, which was being a group fitness instructor and a personal trainer in a gym. And I did about 25-30 hours on top of my full-time school schedule. And then when I went to university, I added another part-time job, which was only 20 hours, but I did already my other 25-30 hours in the gym. And then I became a personal assistant to the general manager from a mobile marketing agency. So you see, I've never had a different reality other than having multiple roles on the go. And clearly that worked for me, which is why I'm such an advocate for it. And this is exactly what I want to share with you today. Why is the shift happening right now, and also why it's accelerating in Australia? And of course, how to take the next steps to land those fractional roles and advisory positions. And finally, I'll share some very exciting details because over the last few weeks, I've also worked on a more specific offer that can help you position yourself as the go-to, as the trusted authority in your field if consulting, advisory, or any kind of project-based roles are of interest. And I'll share with you the details for this 2 days intensive training. So, sounds good? Then let's dive in. First things first, let's have a look into why fractional roles are on the rise to start with. And for that, we need to take a step back and look at the bigger picture in terms of what's actually driving the change, and also why are more executives turning to fractional leadership. The short answer is because we are in the middle of the perfect storm where multiple reasons come together. Now, if you've been following the job market, and I'm sure you have, either because you are impacted by some of those trends and or you are in a position where you have to respond to those trends. So firstly, mass layoffs and redundancies. 60% of public sector employers in Australia anticipate job cuts in the upcoming quarter, and that's up from 31% in the previous quarter, according to ARI. Now, in the private sector, redundancy rates remain steady at 21%, but at the same time, it also shows a continued caution toward long-term hiring. What's very interesting, especially for the Australian landscape, is that the private sector has been stagnant in job growth with only, now get this, a 0.1% increase, which is 6,000 jobs in the past year, according to Deloitte's research. Now, this is obviously not much. On the other hand, the public sector grew 7.6%, which is 316,000 jobs, which shows that probably thanks to the upcoming Olympics in Brisbane, and probably also because of the political party, a shift toward government-driven employment rather than private enterprise expansion. And there's obviously a lot of reasons. It could be due to more economic pressure, but then at the same time, 2024 was the first year when the ATO, the Australian tax organisation, actually went after the business that was on hold during and after COVID. So this certainly has an impact on organisations, and so many organisations had to close down in 2024 or went into liquidation exactly for that reason. And I anticipate this to continue in 5. Simply from what I've seen so far and from the conversations that I've had, but also obviously from the research that I've done for myself and for my clients. From a recruitment perspective, I can tell you with my second business, the 360 Talent Co, 2024 was certainly a very, very slow year in terms of recruitment, because organizations didn't necessarily hire at the rate that they grew in the previous years. And at the same time, we see a lot more restructures rather than new hires. So either employees have to upskill or they make certain skills redundant. There is also an increase in hiring offshore talent for specialized skill sets. So there are many, many reasons. But again, this is what we have to take in consideration as to how we respond to what's happening right now. And let's address the elephant in the room, which is probably not so much an elephant anymore, but a very obvious thing. AI and automation are reshaping work, and AI is already replacing repetitive and execution-based tasks, and this shift is only accelerating from here. But here is the thing, AI can't replace everything. It can very much aid us in what we do already. If you are a mediocre copywriter, AI will only amplify that. If you're already a really good copywriter, then again, AI will amplify that, because you know what kind of prompts would you need to give, what kind of feedback do you need to give, what kind of input in the first place do you need to give. So how we actually deliver work. It's not replacing us, it's reshaping how we actually do the work. And companies obviously still need human expertise, but they are looking for it in a more agile and more cost-effective way. And as I said before, companies are also restructuring more than hiring. I had a conversation the other day with an HR consultancy founder, and he's been in the business for 30 plus years. And he said, usually we've got 3 to 4 restructuring projects a year. In 2024, they had 30, which is massive. So clearly there is a lot going on in organizations, also because of this increased pressure of cutting costs and rethinking how can we stay competitive. And this leads me into the last macro trend that we want to discuss, and that's the economic squeeze and also the changing business priorities. Because even though interest rates have now in Australia slowly come down a little bit by 0.25%, companies still remain cautious about hiring expensive full-time executives. And also businesses are prioritizing efficiency, agility, and specialized expertise, which makes long-term executive contracts less attractive. We see more project-based work rather than full-time ongoing work. And this is a trend that I've been seeing for many, many years, but Australian companies, especially the very traditional run organizations, haven't quite caught up to these trends. What we definitely see left, right, and center, and if you are in consulting in one or another way, you would attest to that, is that when you propose any kind of workshop, training, executive coaching, you name it, you have to justify the ROI, the return on this investment. So if you can't support that your activity actually benefits the organization in a growth perspective, either to gain more money, to save time, or to reduce costs, it's quite hard at the moment to get the sign off. If you've got an experience, please let me know, because I'm always curious to see and learn and hear what others are experiencing out there. Now, what's the bottom line here? The bottom line is that most private companies are rethinking the way they hire, and they move away from full-time executive roles and explore more flexible, high-value consulting and advisory work. If you know how to position yourself, it's a huge opportunity to take advantage of this shift. I also did my advisory board chair certification in 2023 already, simply because I saw already back then the increase in advisory roles and or advisory boards to solve specific problems. And whilst I don't think it has taken off as quickly as I thought it would happen, I do believe that 2025, 2026 will look very different in this aspect, simply because it is a lot cheaper to hire advisory boards to work on a specific problem or challenge, invest in this time frame and this specialized knowledge for 3, 6, maybe 12 months, but then don't have any obligations with this particular board anymore if you don't want to. Now, I'm on a couple of advisory boards myself, and they are paid board roles, and it's literally like that. We are catching up once a month, sometimes once every 6 weeks, for 1 to 3 hours, and I get paid on our agreement. So this is 100% what I see also very beneficial for organizations, because a lot of the businesses that I work with in this kind of capacity, they are between the 1 and maybe 7 million revenue. So they're still quite small, can't probably afford my normal rate or any other executive's normal rate, but it can very much afford those hourly rates or this monthly retainer agreement. And this is also how fractional leadership can solve those challenges for you as business owner or for you as a team leader. Because fractional leadership offers companies cost savings, because you can access top talent without committing to full-time salaries. And also agility. You can quickly bring in the right expertise for specific problems, because traditional recruitment can take weeks, if not months. You also get the strategic insight, because you can tap into specialized knowledge from people who live and breathe this particular topic without the long-term overhead. And then on the other hand, for executives, fractional work provides diverse income streams, which means you are less dependent on one single employer or one single project, because again, we have seen that industries and projects are on top one day and then gone the other day. Think of the travel industry in 2020. Not with their fault, it was just the response to the global pandemic. But you're also more in control, because you can choose the projects that align with your strengths and also with your values, rather than being committed and bound to one employer that may cause you a lot of stress. And last but not least, it also future-proofs you, because you adapt to the changes in the markets rather than being at the mercy of layoffs. And unfortunately, very senior executives cost a lot of money to organizations. And if you've got the 25, 30 plus years with the company, they are finding ways to slowly cut costs. Now let's get into the practical side of starting as a fractional executive. If you are thinking about making the leap into fractional leadership, then this is the roadmap for you to get started. Firstly, and I've said it many, many times, and I will say this many, many times again, is that you need to develop your signature framework. Why? Because companies don't just pay for expertise, they pay for solutions. And what I said before, you as an independent consultant or service provider or even contractor, you need to justify the ROI, the return on investment for your engagement to the organizations. And your skills alone won't get you hired anymore. But a clear, structured approach to solving the problem will. Hardly any consultant or knowledge-based worker has a signature framework that they can not only talk their decision makers through as to what are the milestones, how do we achieve those milestones, what kind of tools am I using to achieve the milestone, but actually can also use that as a roadmap in their own progression. I've spoken to so many executives and they said the one time of leaders who constantly outperform others are the ones who come into the organizations with a playbook. And especially nowadays, where we are required to deliver results a lot quicker than it used to be, trying to figure it out as you go, coming up with an approach as you go, and then implementing those steps as you go certainly slows you down and also doesn't guarantee repeatable and predictable outcomes. Step number 2 is that you need to learn, like it or not, to package and price your services. you need to rethink how you position yourself, and you also need to rethink how you show up in this market. It's no longer enough having all the skill sets and being an employee and being hired in a full-time capacity. We need to learn how to think like an entrepreneur and a business owner, not an employee, which means that you need to create clear service offerings, structure them in a way that provides value, and also set pricing that reflects your expertise without undervaluing yourself. If you are still working on day rates, which is very much an employee engagement, you should rethink your engagement with organizations. Because if you can price project-based or retainer-based, you're focusing on delivering outcomes rather than being paid by the hour. Now, in certain instances, it may make sense to be paid by the hour, but overall, as a consultant, you want to have certain fees for certain outcomes. And those outcomes come down to certain milestones that you deliver based on your step number 1 signature framework. Your company or the company that will hire you relies on you being able to provide the specialized skill sets and getting the results without them having to handhold or babysit you. Step number 3 is about building visibility and demand. Again, another thing that I've said many times before, and I will say many times over again, is that being the best at what you do is not enough anymore. You need to be known for it. And that comes down to thought leadership content, case studies, and of course, position yourself as the go-to in your industry with your step number 1 signature framework. It always comes down to you actually creating your proprietary signature framework that is your systemized and packaged IP that you can then monetize. And this is exactly what also sets you apart from everyone else who's got similar experience and similar expertise to you. And last but not least, you need to connect with the right decision makers. You need to connect with CEOs, board members, and of course investors, because they are the ones that bring in those fractional executives. They have got the decision-making power, and of course they've got the budgets. Too many are building their network with peers who are similar level or just a little bit ahead or just a little bit below, but overall similar, not people who can actually make their call, hire you, approve the budget, or at least open doors and make introductions. Now, the key is to get to those right conversations, whether it's through traditional networking or joining high-value masterminds or groups, or also leveraging referrals from your previous clients with a very structured approach how to actually do word of mouth the right way. If you have got a few clients who have kind of tried to screw you over and minimize the price that they are paying you, and you may have agreed for one or another reason to that, when they are talking to this next person, and obviously Australia and even the world these days is very small, your business won't exist much longer. Because if you always charge, say, $50,000 for an engagement, and all of a sudden you agree to a $20,000 engagement for pretty much the same outcomes, your credibility is gone, and you don't want to get to this state. Which is why, again, it comes down to step number 2. You need to learn how to package and price your services. It is totally okay to have different prices for different services, but it needs to be clearly communicated what is included and what isn't. Now, what is next? So if today's episode hits home, or it's a little bit too close to your own reality for one or another reason at the moment, and you're thinking, you know what, I really need to make this transition, but I don't know where to start, then I've got you covered, because I've developed a brand spanking new program which will turn into a certification in the long run. But for now, it is a 2-day intensive in-person training where we develop together your signature framework that you can then monetize in one or many ways. I also work with you on how to position yourself as a highly sought after fractional executive or board director or advisor or consultant. You learn how to package, price, and of course promote your services effectively, and also what it takes to secure those highly paid advisory and consulting roles very quickly. If that sounds interesting, check out the link in the show notes. I will put all the details in there. But we are on the 16th and 17th of April on the beautiful Gold Coast where I live now. This is literally your opportunity to work with me one-on-one, more or less, in a small group of 14 people maximum, because firstly, the room that we have got secured has rooftop views and beautiful beach breezes. Delightful. only caters for 14 people, and that was also very intentional. I want you to get personalized support and also for an affordable price. The standard price is $4,500, which you can easily make back in a day's worth of work when you are positioned as the authority in your space. However, to make it super accessible and also acknowledge what's happening in the industry and in the market overall, I offer a very special price for a very limited time for only $2,000. Now, caveat, if you work with me one-on-one, my day rate is $12,000. So it is very much a bargain in my world, but I guarantee you, you will make this money back literally in no time. So again, if that sounds interesting, please make sure to check out the show notes. I will put all the links in there. Once the seats are gone, they are gone. I will run other rounds later this year, but again, it's not going to be for that price. So if you want to take advantage of this very special early access pricing, this is your chance. So with that, thank you so much for tuning in. I am very excited for what's ahead for you. Yes, it's challenging. Yes, we have to rethink how we actually create value, but also this is our opportunity to rethink how do we want to show up? How do we want to shape our own career or business based on what's going on? There's no such thing as bearing the head in the sand. We just get on with it and reinvent ourselves and ride the wave before it crushes us.